You're listening to Tehachapod with Key Budge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
It's Tehachapod time again. Key Budge, Greg Garrett, Corey Costello. Guys, how are you today?
Doing good, Key.
Hey, this is going to be a fun show. We're going to talk about an event in Tehachapi that's going on, and it's musically related.
Yeah, we're talking about, from what we learned from, Blues Brothers and Bob's Country Bunker, there's two types of music, country and Western. And so today we're talking about Western.
Yeah. I thought it was always the same, but I guess
not.
it is different.
No.
I know. And I learned so much with these podcasts. Everyone gets better. No offense to anyone previously, but the live art scene in Tehachapi is alive and well and growing. Yeah. So super excited.
Let's introduce our guest today. Peter Keller, you are from Fiddlers Crossing, and there's no pressure on us, but you do have about 50 years of radio experience, recording engineer, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no pressure on us to perform, but we welcome you to Tehachapod.
Well, thank you, Key, and Corey and Greg. It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me.
For sure.
Fiddlers Crossing is such an interesting venue, and it's an intimate setting. And you guys have been around since 2010, if I'm correct.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Fiddlers Crossing. I know you right now. You're kind of in a wait and see as we deal with the rest of this COVID situation. But let's talk about a little bit the backstory of what brought Fiddlers Crossing to Tehachapi.
Sure, I love to tell this story. Well, as most people who've been in Tehachapi for a while know, there used to be a place called Mama Hilly Beans over where the Red House Barbecue is now, and they were there for a couple of years, and I helped them out quite a bit while they were in business, and then recorded a bunch of shows there and all that kind of stuff, and it was great, but it didn't last, as we all know, and Debbie and I were really wanting to keep that vibe going. So we realized we had a space there, and we went for it. We just put a show in there and saw what happened.
And Debbie is Debbie Hand, former mayor of the city of Tehachapi. She's actually in the room with us today, just a fly on the wall, I'll say that. I'm super excited to see Debbie. But Fiddlers Crossing, for those that maybe don't know where you're located, you're on the corner of Robinson and F Street right downtown. And you have a sweet little venue that you invite talent in, live shows, pre-COVID, of course. And it's just an amazing little place that people can hear amazing artists playing their music.
Yeah, we pull in talent from all over the world. I mean, these are not only nationally touring artists, but actually internationally touring. We have people from the UK and Australia and New Zealand and Italy and a bunch of countries over the years.
Well, coming up here in September on the 25th, we're going to have Western recording artist Dave Stamey.
Oh, we're really excited.
And so you guys know Dave on a personal basis. So for those that don't know Dave Stamey, we're gonna play some music. He gave us permission to sample some of his music here on our podcast. So we greatly
podcast
appreciate
first.
that.
Yeah, that's podcast first for us.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So this is super cool. So thanks for coordinating that with Dave for us. But tell us how your connection with Dave.
Well, about 2011, I think it was, we got an email from an artist named Junie Fisher, who's a good friend of Dave's, and she's a Western performer too. She calls herself the West's best cowgirl balladeer, and she is. She's fantastic. And she came in and did the show, and people just loved her. And she said, well, if you like me, you need to call Dave Stamey. You got to have this guy. So I got a hold of him, and he said, sure, I'd love to come to Tehachapi, blah, blah, blah. And we had him, and the rest is history. And we've been having him every other year for, I don't know, to about 8 to 10 years, something like that.
And he's a local guy. I mean, he's a Central California guy. So he's out in the Central California, here in the San Joaquin Valley.
That's right, yeah.
And he just, I've seen him in concert a couple of times. And he is a storyteller.
So you've seen him in concert?
I have, yeah.
Where was that?
Well, one here at the BK Theater a couple of years ago. And then prior to that in Santa Paula, part of the Santa Clarita Western Heritage event that they do throughout their entire valley.
Yeah,
and Chris, you're really into the art scene. I'm so impressed with the music, the arts.
The art.
Just a couple weeks ago, you went down to LA to see the Van Gogh experience. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, Chris is bringing
He's a Renaissance
culture
man.
to you.
He is a Renaissance man.
Oh
Let's
my goodness!
not be mistaken. Key is a Renaissance
Peter
man.
and Debbie are bringing culture to Tehachapi,
Renaissance
right?
man.
You're giving me way too much credit for that. Okay. My wife does introduce me to these special things, and then I learn to embrace them and appreciate them.
There you go.
Because as soon as we finished the Van Gogh experience, she looked at me, and this was down in L.A., and we finished with the show, and she goes, we need to go over to the Norton Simon right now. And I go, why? Because there's more pieces there. And sir, we got in the car, drove from downtown LA over to Pasadena, and then experienced even more. So, but I
that's
wouldn't
what
have.
Fiddlers Crossing is
Yes.
doing to Tehachapi, right? They're bringing art to our town.
But then even Key with Dave Stamey, and he brought up to me, and I said, okay, I like Western music. I enjoy storytelling music, and I've listened to, and I'm like, wow, I really like Dave Stamey. I mean, one of my favorite sort of Western storytellers, a little more mainstream, but would be Chris Ledoux. You know, Chris wrote a lot of rodeo songs. His son, Ned Ledoux, is doing the exact same thing and sounds very similar to his dad, his late father. And so I love that, like, just don't give me a song with a hook and a chorus. Give me a story.
Yes.
And put a guitar to it. And then you really feel like you see what they're singing about.
Right. Right. And Dave is a fabulous storyteller and captivating on stage. I mean, he's a perfect example of how to perform. He's just,
One
wonderful.
guy, him and his guitar, and he holds the audience right here in his hand.
That's the brilliance of the music. As you listen to it, you hear, you're trying to think, I'm not hearing drums or bass or keys or anything else. I'm just hearing this guy play guitar very well, because his guitar has several different layers. And you're hearing that it sounds like a full concert, just a guy and his guitar. It's vocals,
and it's not the head
guitar.
banging stuff, to each his own for sure.
It's like hanging
but
around a campfire.
storytelling is very special. It's
Yes.
campfire. That's
It's,
exactly right. Sitting around.
Well,
the
we all
fire.
like to be told a story.
Right.
If you think about being in kindergarten and first grade, and a teacher would get up and read a story to you, or your mom would read a story to you.
So true.
Everybody wants to have a story told.
Yeah, and I'd spent some time when I was coming up in my college years, especially. I'm a guy going to college taking that route, and I had friends who owned, or they were caretakers on a cattle ranch in Caliente, and they had cowboys that lived at their ranch. They had a bunkhouse, and it was, I'd go down and hang out, and we didn't have a ton in common in terms of our life path, but I would do a lot of the work they would do on the weekends and stuff. And so you're around these cowboys, and these guys are actually who are working cattle. And when you hear these songs like Dave Stamey, like, I can relate a little bit and understand the romanticism of what he sings about and the life of a lot of people.
And you don't really even have to have a background in Western culture or horse culture or anything else to get what he's doing. That's the thing. He makes it really understandable and accessible and entertaining.
Well, it's like I was thinking about the Bluegrass Festival that you and Debbie attend every year. I think it's up in Porterville or somewhere.
Well, we don't attend that one any longer, but it actually that particular festival, the Strawberry Music Festival, started as a bluegrass festival,
Right.
but after a couple of years turned into just a music festival.
And it's
It
all
broadened.
about stories, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and it's a different way to project that story, right?
That's really what folk and Americana and country and all these related musics do.
People stereotype certain artists or genres or
Yeah.
different things, but really don't do that. You need to open up, right?
Yeah.
And listen.
Yeah.
Open mind.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
nice.
I tell you, with listening to the music of Dave Stamey, I had to explore a little bit more, and you start to, okay, let's find out a little bit more about what makes this guy tick. Because you hear some of the stories as he's telling them, leading into a song, and he pulls you into the song, and then the song tells that story, whatever that flavor he's the painting that he's painting at the time. If you look and see some of the events he does, like if you're into trail riding, he'll be a singer where all of a sudden you're trail riding all day. They set up, the old Western camp and the big campfire,
Chuck wagon,
and then Dave comes out and performs for you. It's like this, you get an experience with it. So I mean,
Take my money now. I'd be all over that.
Well, I just thought of something, Key. You made me think of something. I flashed on it. My wife and I were wine tasting in Paso Robles over the summer, and we stumbled upon this kind of outdoor venue. It was a bar, a brewery. They had live music, but they had a lady painting a painting while the people were singing and playing their music. And I thought, how cool is this? They're playing music, and there's this lady, this artist, painting a painting at the same time. And I was just drawn into that whole experience. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that infusion of different things I mean, that's what makes, some of these life experiences so special, is when we can take one, art and bring it in with another art.
Yeah.
And for me, Stamey is such a visual storyteller. And then when he sings, it's like that visualization of what he's talking about continues.
Oh, yeah, very much, yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to the relationship that you've had with Stamey over the years. And have you ever asked him what his thoughts are on Tehachapi?
He loves Tehachapi. First of all, the audiences in Tehachapi are fantastic. Regardless of who's here, we have great audiences here. They're very enthusiastic. They really listen. They buy product if they have CDs or other merchandise to sell. But Dave loves it here because he's got quite a fan base here. They really come out.
Yeah, I know he's done some private shows at some of the different ranches around here. We've got some friends that said, "Oh yeah, Dave came and performed at at their event," and he's very much, he could sit in this room and he wouldn't fill the room with his head.
Not at all.
No,
very humble, very down to earth guy.
Yeah. That's the way he comes across.
Yeah.
I think and I've had this conversation with other folks about the way we distribute music these days, right? It used to be, as you pointed out, Peter, you had to buy a CD and it had to be usually pressed by a big record label. Before that, it was records and tapes and all that. But you needed that recording contract. You had to have that big record label to promote you, to get yourself in the Sam Goody of the world, right? To date myself, and get your CDs at the right. Now we're seeing so many artists who are very talented, who can, because of digital, the Spotifys, the Apples, the Googles, they can get their stuff out there. And the better part is the shelf life is forever now. I was talking to a coworker who was mentioning his daughter was going to like a Green Day concert. And I said, hold on, Green Day was popular when I was in high school. And he said, oh no, it's on her playlist. Or he said, Jim Croce was on his daughter's playlist. And I said, well, I listen to that because my parents listen to that. But now, because of the way music says, hey, you might like this, you might like that, kids are sampling. There is no date anymore on music. And it's amazing. It's a big benefit.
And I'm really, I don't know if the record companies are happy about this, but we're all really happy about it. I mean, just about all of the artists that we have at Fiddlers Crossing or that we've had on the radio show that I do, Folk Scene out of LA, these people don't have major recording contracts. None of them do. They're all distributing their own music, or with a friend that has a system and putting it out digitally, and they're still pressing CDs as well.
Sure.
But in fact, some of them are putting out vinyl.
That's right.
It's funny how that comes back, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm old enough to remember it the first time.
Yeah.
And now I'm back on it big time.
Good. Yeah. And even just the ability for those people to monetize their stuff, right? There's not a giant cut going to record company; it's going to them, and so that's I think beneficial to artists. And we're seeing tons of talented people get a shot to finally put their music out there. That in the past there were barricades.
They would not have a chance. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Folk Scene. You brought that up.
Oh, okay.
I was
that
just
was clever, wasn't
it? Why don't we have a peek into that?
Because the things that we do here at the city and the way we communicate, I mean, we always try to be out in front and do things that government hasn't been doing. But you've been doing a lot of this communication in the digital world for a long time. So, I mean, you've got Folk Scene that you've been doing for close to 50 years.
Close to it.
And then Fiddlers Crossing has a SoundCloud account where you can go and listen to these recordings if you'd like to. So that's at soundcloud.com. We're on SoundCloud, Tehachapi is, but you just look up Fiddlers Crossing and you can see these different shows that you guys have hosted. But let's talk about your syndicated radio show.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call it syndicated. It's a local radio show based out of Los Angeles. It's on KPFK FM there, which is at 90.7 in LA. It's been on since 1970. 51 years. Wow. It was started by a couple named Howard and Roz Larman. We're both gone now. But their son, Alan Larman, and his wife, Kat, are now the hosts and producers, and I'm the engineer and co-producer with them. So that show airs every Sunday night in LA, but KPFK has a huge signal. So we're heard pretty much San Diego to Santa Barbara on that. And then there's a version on an online platform called folkmusicnotebook.com. and I host that one. So I come in and I do the introductions and tell people what they're going to hear, and then I play one of the features, one of the live shows that I engineered and edited, and then I wrap it up at the end. So that airs on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Pacific.
Talent in Tehachapi runs deep. Honestly, we have so many great people doing so many great things. It's amazing.
It is. I just think that's the cool thing. I worked in radio back in the 80s down in L.A. in small radio in L.A. Even though it's a major market, there were still little mom and pop, radio stations that were trying to survive amongst the big guys. And that's where I got to cut my teeth in radio. And just how the industry's changed over the course. I can't even imagine since 1970.
Well, I have to tell you, I started at KPFK when I was 15 years old. I'm not kidding. 1972, that tells you how old I am. I had a friend, very briefly, whose mom was a big supporter of the radio station, so listener-supported station. So she was a big supporter. She took us down there to answer phones and take pledges. Well, we never ended up doing that, but we hung out, and we both became fascinated with all the technology and, all the cool stuff they had. And so I started hanging out, riding my bike down there. I mean, you can imagine. And when I was 15... in high school, I took the FCC test that you had to take at that time for a third-class radio telephone license. I passed it, and I got a board shift so I could run the transmitter and everything else at 15 years old. And I was running the board, and the following year, about 73, I'm pretty sure it was 73, I met Howard and Roz Larman because their show was after my shift, and I guess we started up a conversation, and I became their board op. And that's how it started.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
And here we are.
My career radio wise is very similar in terms of starting as a board op and then kind of a producer. Like once you realize you could run a talk show, it was like, okay, now we're going to make you a producer. You're not just a board op, like you're the producer of the show, and you learn the nuts and bolts when you're the board op in a small station of how it operates and, pulling satellite feeds and stuff like that we had. And now most of it's digital. You program and a computer does it for you. But I think I was fortunate because the station I work for still had a lot of the 1970s technology when I started there in the 2000s. And so I got to experience some old radio.
And I'm just a city manager in a small town in California, and I just wanted to push out communication. Right. So here we are. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So Dave has a concert coming up in the city of Tehachapi, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do it outside. It's at Mountain Bible Church. They have a courtyard there with a big grassy area, a great place to put a temporary stage. And we're going to do 2 shows on the 25th, one at noon and the other at 4 p.m. Tickets are $30. They're available over at the Tehachapi Treasure Trove if you want to buy a paper ticket, or you can go on fiddlerscrossing.com, and we have a little store there, and you can just buy them there. And we're limiting the audience to 100 per show, just so that there's plenty of room for people, and people will feel confident and safe and comfortable. And Dave's real happy with the whole setup. He can't wait to do it.
So Saturday the 25th, Mountain Bible Church.
Mountain Bible Church, which is at 630 Maple Street. It's Maple and Mountain View.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring your own chair, too.
Oh, yes. That's very important, yes. We're doing it festival style, which means we encourage you to bring a low-back beach kind of chair and bring a picnic with your lunch for the noon show or an early dinner for the 4 p.m. show. No alcohol, please. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, make yourself comfortable. There'll be shade. We have canopies so that, you can sit under the canopy if you like. There will be a regular chair seating behind and to the side of the low back chair area. This is what they do at festivals, so that if you're not comfortable sitting low or you don't have that kind of chair, there will be seating for you too.
Well, thank you to Mountain Bible Church for hosting.
Big time. They're great over there. We did a number of shows indoors in their sanctuary in 2018, 2019. They're fabulous to work with. Pastor Frost is wonderful. He's a really good guy, and we thank them over there a lot. They've been great to us.
And I believe you also helped out with the upgrade in their sound equipment in terms of, I know
That's true.
They said, as in I was told because I go there, that Peter really helped us get this new board that we have now and
they
recommended what to get.
They asked me, what would you get if, within this budget? And I said, well, that's a pretty good budget. I said, here's what I would do if you can, and they went out and did it. And I was real happy because the last show we did there in early 20, before the pandemic stopped everything, we got to use their new speakers, which I had recommended, and boy, I was real happy.
Now the new board's in and everything, so
Yeah,
it sounds
yeah.
great.
And I know, Peter, you were instrumental, you and Debbie, with TCT and the BK Theater. As you know, the city of Tehachapi owns the BK Theater.
Right.
And when we restored the BK some 15 years ago, you were very instrumental in the sound system and all
I
the
gave them some
elements.
input on that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
again, the rest is history. So thank you very much.
Well, thank Debbie,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
former mayor of Tehachapi.
yeah, right.
So wherever we go, you've had a little hand in something. You've been able to touch something right there and share some of your past experiences, to help enhance the things that we enjoy.
Again, that's what makes Tehachapi special, right?
is.
Community involvement, people helping each other.
The great thing about a small town or small city is you can really have an effect. I grew up in LA, a lot of us did, or big cities in somewhere. And, you feel like a very small fish in a huge pond, But in Tehachapi, I came here and I found out it was much, much easier to get involved with things, to get involved with other people, to do things that help the community, that you enjoy doing. You can make a difference very easily here, and I really like that.
Wow, what a great comment that is, on the fabric of the community. But we each can make a difference,
I think it
if
takes
you put
more
that effort in.
I think it takes more effort to be on the sidelines and criticize than it does to just get involved.
Yeah.
Right, and that doesn't mean you have to all day, every day. That means just a little
Just
bit
do
here and
something
a little bit there.
that helps your
right?
community,
Right.
and you can see it in action. You walk out and you see the result of your labors.
That's right. Well, I'm really excited about Dave coming to town and 2 shows at the Mountain Bible Theater. And I know, do you have some music you want to play, or?
Dave gave us permission, thanks to Peter, to sample some of his music. So let's go ahead and check in on some of the sounds of Dave Stamey.
Mike Hernandez was a bueno vaquero, rode some good horses, California style. I watched him for hours and he showed me a little of the old California he knew for a while. Started young horses in Bosali Fiador, onto the Touraine, the old Spanish spade. Brought them along with 2 hands that were gentle, some fine reining horses as ever were made. And he'd spin that pony hanging on to the riata. He hung from hereafter in the Willow Creek barn. And I watched and I wondered, man, how could it do that then? He changed direction and spin him some more, round and round and round. Had them big spurs that came from Chihuahua. They never had ever raked hide nor hair. They had a nice jingle, and when you rode by, they made pretty music that danced on the air. Lived in a shack with his wife named Juanita. She cooked on a wood stove tortillas and beans. After we'd eaten, he said, come I'll show you what the word handle on a good cow horse means. And he'd spin that pony hanging on the riata. He hung from hereafter in the Willow Creek barn. And I watched and I wondered, man, how could it do that then? He'd change direction and spin him some more, round and round and round. Come ride with me, it's time to saddle up, ride away. There's so much to see, don't worry, I know the trails, I know the way. I caught a gentle horse, his eyes are big and brown. He's ready to carry you the whole world around. Come ride with me, let's ride away. Come take a chance, I'll show you where the mountains touch the sky. It's a horseback dance, and we can ride forever if we try. A dream in the distance, there for you to chase. Out in the sunrise with the wind on your face. Come ride with me, let's ride away. But I'm happy, I'm rich, but I'm broke, and the good Lord knows the reason I'm just a cowboy. From Cheyenne to Austin, them ranges I know I drift with the wind. No one cares where I go. Got a cent in these old wore-out jeans, so I quit eating steak and go back to beans. I pick up a 10-spot in Prescott, I know, just to ride in the broncs in the big rodeo. Section line, out where lives are held together with sweat and baling twine, where you rattle your bones on a tractor over 30 years old, and there's a mortgage and kids to be fed out on 12-mile road. Stretch of country, the wind comes blowing through. Homesteaders starved out and blew away. There's nobody out here but you. You know someday it's gonna turn around. Lord, it turns so slow. It ain't rained since April out on 12-mile road. So slow, hanging on to a ragged dream out on 12-mile road. My name is Juan Medina, of a kettle once was I. Now I live in the air above the pepper trees. And where are all the cattle that belong to Captain Dinah? They are blown away like ashes in the California breeze. And once I rode the foothills and I swung the long riata. I worked the hide and tallow trade in a land I loved. I rode in wooden stirrups and the dust raised by my ponies was smoke from my altar offered up to God above. Todavía estoy aquí, I am still here. Todavía estoy aquí, my soul is dancing in the moonlight. And mingle with each grain of sand in the land that is my birthright. I am still here, todavía estoy aquí. I am still here, todavía estoy aquí.
The sounds of Dave Stamey.
Great music.
If anyone is listening going, you just got exposed to Dave for the first time, it's davestamey.com, and that's Stamey. And his music is downloadable. It's on iTunes. I've got 5 or 6
I just
of his.
listen to a big playlist of it on Spotify. I mean, if you want to go to get Tehachapi on Spotify, and then when you're done listening to Tehachapi on Spotify,
I heard
you
it
can
down the hallway. I'm like, Corey, what's going on? He's like, I'm preparing for the show. This guy's great. And
That's
I'm
right.
like, he is.
I was riding on the prairies.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what he tells you. It's what he's that visual storytelling. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he is. He's going to be fantastic. If you get a chance to see him, I highly recommend it. I'm gonna go to one of the shows here in Tehachapi. I'm also going to see him in October in Morro Bay as well. So we've got tickets for that. You know, it's,
You're a groupie.
Well,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what? That's his audience is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's for us. It's a weekend getaway, and because we love the Morro Bay area, and then the fact that we can go see him at a ranch setting,
Yeah.
you know, it adds to the whole flavor of it.
I think everybody has that one artist that they've seen multiple times just because they like him so much and they don't mind and they like to see him in different venues. I mean, I know I have my guy being somebody a Pat Green fan. He's Texas Red Dirt Country, one of the original guys, and I've seen him in Austin. I've seen him in Southern California. I've met him. I've seen him in Bakersfield like 4 or 5 times, and he's just such a great show, very good storyteller as well. And yeah, you don't mind seeing those people over and over again because the show's different every time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Peter, I want to ask you. I want to, no pressure here, but so what are your early thoughts of Tehachapi coming in here? 50 years of radio experience. I've got everything set up here on the desk. I'm thankful that he didn't see our early evolution of where we came from.
Our desktop bomb that we had set up the
producing
first
a
time.
pretty good show for the minimal equipment.
Well, that's the
$200
great
worth of
thing with the
stuff.
technology today. You can do wonderful work on very little.
Yeah.
But no, I'm very impressed. This is a great setup. It seems very professional, very efficient.
It's getting better.
We
Getting there.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then let's go back to your radio show.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you when you're reaching out to these artists and you're producing the show, do you do that here in Tehachapi?
Yeah, well, right now, during the pandemic period, we've been doing remote shows. I have a platform I use called IPDTL, which I think it stands for Internet Protocol Down the Line or something like that. But basically what it allows me to do is high quality hookups to anywhere in the world, broadcast quality hookups. So my interviewer, Alan Larman in many cases, sometimes Debbie actually does some of the shows too, but my interviewer might be in LA, for instance, in the case of Alan. My interviewee could be anywhere. You could be in the UK, could be in Canada or Australia, and we do it as if it's live. It's recorded like we're doing today, but it's as if it's live. Yeah. And we've been doing a lot of shows like that. Of course, before pandemic, we were doing them live in studio in LA. We just did a couple of those in LA that we're happy to get back to that with Debbie interviewing. And then I do all of the mixing and editing and mastering here in my studio.
It's nice to be able to have the flexibility to do something remotely.
I love it. We've been able to get guests, again, going back to folksing, but we've been able to get guests that we would not normally have access to.
And even the quality too, the quality of audio over the years. I mean, I started doing a lot of sports remote broadcasting. Started with everything was a telephone line, and it was tinny on the road, and then it kind of graduated to some ISDN lines and that kind of stuff, and then it graduated to over the internet IP stuff where. Yeah, you could sit and I could be doing a game in Utah and in Bakersfield it sounded like I was in a studio because the quality using the internet to do that. And so that's really changed.
Yeah, no, it's been really great for us. Thank goodness for that technology, really. Yeah.
And especially with music. I mean, if you lose in video, if you look at a video, if the audio is off, forget it. You're not watching it at all. Audio is such a critical piece of how we connect to whatever it is that we're participating in. If the audio is bad, forget it. I'm out. So, it's
and in radio, that's all you have is audio,
Right.
so it better be good.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And we haven't, in our podcast, we haven't taken it to a video realm yet.
Oh, I can see you planting the seed, Keith.
Makeup.
Here we go.
I don't know if we're ready to expose the audience to that yet.
Peter, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up?
Oh, yeah. Actually, Debbie has reminded me. Folkscene, having been on the air for 51 years, we have quite an archive, an amazing archive of material. And some years ago, we finally, came to the realization that we can't let this stuff crumble into dust. There's a lot of music history there. And so we are archiving it. Our good friend Ed Hammond, who lives in the house right next to our venue, is our official archivist. And he actually was an archivist before he retired, so that he really knows what he's doing. And he's transferring the stuff, and he's notating everything. Of course, I've got access to all the old shows, which we do play on the show from time to time. But also the collection is going to an archive in North Carolina.
Oh, cool.
At the Southern Folk Life Center in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
So you have a library that you're putting together.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because you wouldn't believe, it's just insane that the people that have been on that show. We had Vince Gill on when he was 21 years old, doing Good Woman's Love as an example.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Randy Newman was on the show. Tom Waits was on the show. Roseanne Cash was on there. You name it, they've been on.
I've been at the Grand Ole Opry a couple times, and it's amazing the talent that goes on to stage there. Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing. A name or a no name, it's just really good music.
Yeah.
And it's fun when you have the interactions with people when they're young artists. I remember years ago, I was at a show, Buck Owens was still alive. We were at the Crystal Palace, and they came up and they said, hey, we have this young upcoming artist. He's going to play a couple sets for you before the Buckaroos get on stage, and welcome Brad Paisley. Yep. And so Brad plays, and then they said, hey, he's going to be in the lobby signing autographs, and he had some photos. And my sister and I sat around and talked to Brad Paisley for like 30 minutes.
Oh, that's
because
great.
The line had died down. We were the last ones there, and we loved the guy personally. And then he absolutely, his first album went out, and then a second, and then now he's one of the biggest
huge
country superstars.
Yeah.
But what a great, it was so cool to have those, I still have the photo he autographed for me, when he was just 20-something years old.
What a great memory, huh? It's a great memory.
We had Dwight Yoakam on our show right before he hit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I remember engineering that show. It was about 1985 or so.
Right, yeah, because I want to say Streets of Bakersfield came out in like 86, 87.
Yeah, so it was 85
when his
that we
redo
had
with
him
Buck
on.
Owens. Yeah, awesome.
Nobody had heard of him.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Palomino down in North Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That was back
very
there.
Very well-known place. Yeah, famous.
And that was quite an event. Didn't know who he was.
Right.
He was a new Warner Brothers recording artist. And,
You said, I don't know about them leather pants,
I was
but...
going to say, was it spaghetti legs? They call him spaghetti legs or something? I'm not sure. But he's a great singer also.
Yeah.
But folks here locally, if you want to come out to the Stamey show on September 25th, you get a chance. I mean, Dave is approachable, and you'll walk away with something. I think that is a super experience.
Yeah,
so
and I would encourage you, if you're interested in this show, to get on it right away because, as I said, there's a limited number of tickets available. And get over to Tehachapi Treasure Trove and buy your paper tickets, or go on fiddlerscrossing.com and buy your online tickets.
Awesome.
It's great.
There we go. So again, it's going to be davestamey.com if you're interested in checking out Dave at all. But go to fiddlerscrossing.com. You can, and the information that Peter shared is there, and also the connections where to get the tickets at the Treasure Trove or through their online site, which is what we did. And Debbie, you're in the background. We haven't had you in, on the mic, but we thank you for coming in, and you prompted Peter a couple of times. So that was good. And Peter, thank you for taking the time. I reached out to you, and it'll be fun to do.
Yeah, he bought some tickets, and then he reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to do Tehachapi? I said, oh, absolutely. When do you want me there?
Yeah, so I don't want anyone to think that I got tickets for having we purchased the
He
tickets.
bought the tickets, and then he asked
You did it in the right way.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Good enough.
So there we go, folks. We hope you appreciate, what Peter has brought and sharing some of the stories from his journey through radio and through how Fiddlers Crossing has come to be, and their next event on September 25th with Dave Stamey. So we appreciate your time. Any feedback, any questions, something you'd like to ask either Debbie or Peter from Fiddlers Crossing, you can send that to us at media@tehachapicityhall.com. We appreciate your time. Guys, any last word?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think so, and I hope you enjoyed the music of Dave Stamey. And Dave, thank you for allowing us to share it here on the podcast.
And thank you for having me here. Thank you very much, guys.
It was a pleasure.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapod.